okay, you still live in the feathers seem to fly in sunlight outside. Still the breath of the wind still lives them in your blood, still flows, and those quiet ribbons of tension that thread around your form live there for now. Okay. Okay, the ground there beneath your feet supports you every day. You breathe, drink and love. You fill your body healthily, and somewhere deep down inside your heart you know all the truths you need to know. Okay. Hi everyone. Good evening to those of you in Europe. Please be on mute if you can. Hi everybody, and welcome to Call Off the Thought and Sing. This is a discussion show where we also have voices. And is everybody on mute? Can you all be on mute? Please be on mute. Thank you. Yeah, where we talk about stuff, and also we sing. We use our voices. I'm Briony Greenhill. I'm your host. I'm a singer and a voice facilitator. I'm joined this evening by two other. I'm joined this evening by Nessi and Valentina. I'll introduce everybody more elaborately when they speak, who are also musicians and voice workshop leaders who hold very deeply therapeutic spaces. And I'm joined by Conor O'Brien and Marcia Willis. And Conor is a singer and improviser, and also a music theorist, a music therapist who wrote his master's dissertation on the therapeutic aspects of collaborative improvisation. And Marcia is a deeply experienced, wonderful vocal improviser who's worked her whole career in mental health in the NHS. And so she moves between worlds. And also joining in this evening is Anita Lewis, who's currently in a workshop in Crete. And so she sent a video. So a very, very warm welcome to you all. Let's just take a moment to land. Give the feet a wiggle and bring your awareness to the sensations of your feet. Notice the texture of the floor or the socks or the shoes, or bring your awareness up the legs to the sit bones and shift from sit bone to sit bone. Notice the weight. Oh, it's lovely to see you all. Hi, Chris. It's nice to see you. It's nice to see familiar faces. Hi, Danielle. And take the awareness into the torso. Nice deep breath, slow exhalation. Soften the sides of the tongue. Widen into owl eyes, into the peripheries of your vision. Even if your eyes are closed, you can do that just fine. Have a little hum into your heart. Feel the vibrations there if you can. Bring to mind one thing you feel grateful for. And an intention that you have for this 90-minute gathering. Great. And then let's sing that to the air on one breath's worth of sound. So exhale, inhale, your gratitude, your intention. Great. So I'm just going to lead us in a tiny little vocal warm-up so that we got our voices with us while we go through this this journey, really, this conversation. So have a little stretch and wiggle, move your body somehow or other. Yeah, you might have been active all day. Oh, can you mute, please, if you haven't muted? Or you might not have been. Yeah, have a yawn into one half of your mouth and down one side of your throat. And the other side. Stick the tongue deeply out, deeply in. Inhale into your nasal cavities one at a time. And then yeah, some heady sounds. Okay. Some throaty sounds gently. Be on mute, please, if you can. Great. Let's breathe into the chest and make some chesty sounds. Some diaphragm sounds. Breathe into the area between the bra strap area and the waist, and invites the sounds here. See what happens. Beautiful. Breathe into the belly. Invite the voice into the belly. And invite the voice into the pelvis. And then invite the voice to move everywhere between the pelvis and the head and everywhere in between. Great. And then the last thing that can be really helpful for this is creature language, which is basically speaking nonsense. So speak some nonsense like have a little check-in. How you doing? Great. And then just start singing in creature language and see what happens. I'll go quiet so you can do it. It brings me great pleasure to look at all of you. Great. So that's it for the voice warm-up. You're ready at any point to, well, we won't interrupt speakers, but at various points to call off the thought and sing. We're going to go until 7:30 UK time. We'll have a little comfort break in the middle. We'll have a little dancing break in the middle. And yeah. So the first speaker I'd like to invite this evening is Valentina Levchenko. Valentina is Ukrainian. She's in Ukraine right now, and I'm putting her first because bless her and her courage and everyone's courage. They never know when there's going to be they're going to have to go to the air raid shelter. So we're getting you first while you can be here with us, Valentina. Valentina grew up in Ukraine, developed a business, was really successful, left her business to follow her passion to be a musician. She went and studied with Bobby McFerrin and Rhiannon, and then went to Brazil and creatively explored the fusion of Ukrainian and Brazilian music, and her debut album in 2019. How do you pronounce it, Valentina?
So it's called Berehi.
Maybe you can put the link in the chat. It ended up being an indie top 10 of Ukrainian albums in 2019 in the year it's released. Well, I met Valentina because we're forming an international vocal improvisation guild, and Valentina's part of it, and so am I. And when I heard Valentina's life story, I was really struck by the parallels with my own. To put it simply, we grew up in Europe. We followed our passions to be singers. It took us to study with Bobby McFerrin. There we discovered Rhiannon, fell in crazy mad love with this amazing woman, went and did a year-long with her. And in the course of the year-long, I think it's true for each of us that so much of our stuff came up. And Valentina, you can speak to your own experience. For me, I had to take myself off at night to the woods and the beaches and just sing through some of the overwhelm that was coursing through me as I improvised and sung. And then for each of us, when we took this art form home, me to Britain and Valentina to Ukraine, we found the same thing happening for all of our students. And I had to go learn a lot about trauma. Valentina had to go and learn a lot about Ukrainian history for us to make sense of like how to teach this art form in a psychologically safe and supportive way. So Valentina, in this question, what the heck are we dealing with when we're dealing with collaborative vocal improvisation? You've got about 10 minutes. I'll give you a 9-minute bow. I'd love to hear from you about your... Am I speaking too fast?
No, fine. I'm still understanding you.
Okay, but I'd love you to speak to your experience as a vocalist, as a singer, as a student, and also as a facilitator, and what you found happening with yourself and what you find happening with your students when we start to improvise, when we start to sing, what it brings up for us, and ways in which the art form also can help. Yeah. Thanks for being here, Valentina. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I was a normal office worker with different, with normal job, and as I was somehow, I have no idea why I decided to study with Rhiannon with all this improvisation. It's no logic in that, but. I went there and started to study with her, and I left my job and everything what was business like. And during that year, I was sure that I'm dealing just with myself, and I was sure that all the problems I'm facing as a improviser is just my personal problem and my personal trauma as connected to my personal story or something. But closer to the end of the year, I understood that because I spent so much time away from home, I started to realize that I'm Ukrainian, and it was 2018. We have already first wave of the war, but it still wasn't that much understanding what does it mean to be Ukrainian, what does it mean, all of this story, because we grew up in USSR and afflicted all this propaganda stuff, and closer to the end of the year study with Rhiannon, I started to realize that part of the stuff I was dealing is actually cultural stuff. So the more far I went from Ukraine, the more Ukrainian I became, with understanding what's difference between me and all these people in the group, because I'm from Eastern Europe, and people from European country are different, and from States and Canada it's like another planet. And when I came back, and suddenly I decided that it's a good idea to gather people and sing with them, because I also already did body percussion things, and we start to improvise, and instead of being just technical exercises thing, what I thought it's going to be, it started to unleash a huge amount of personal feelings and becoming like super therapeutic. So, and I even started to be happy when people would start to cry, because I understand that after that our singing will become completely better, and it like would open the doors. So suddenly, instead of just being singing, it started to be huge trauma, something dealing, understanding here history. And when I started to deal with my people, I understand that I call them dragons, I was dealing all year, facing them, studying with Rhiannon. I understand that all of my students have the same dragons, and that they not just personally story related, they're actually country history and this collective memory, trauma related. Like, for example, we have this in USSR thing that or do it perfect or don't do it at all. So everybody who will even be amazing singers, every note that they're not sure, it will be connected with the tremendous amounts of stress. So the more educated person, the more stress it's going to be. And it's also, at some point, I just sit and write huge posts about everything. I understand was more cultural than personal. And since then I'm leading, I'm seeing it more and more, and still thinking, I'm even thinking that at some point I will have to really make some essay or research about what kind of community history memory drama we're dealing with. But yes, improvisation somehow become, for me and for my students, more like personal growth, trauma healing situation, even though it's not the meaning of our improvisation meetings. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you ask me some question, because I could talk a lot about that.
Yeah, well, wow, you bless you. You spoke quickly and you got a lot into half the time. So you said, yeah, I vibe with you that we're getting together to learn this art form, to sing, to make music, to sing, but it becomes this whole personal development healing thing because of just what happens to us when we sing.
Yeah, so what I remember I wanted to say as well. So what we started to do further with some people who are like my advanced student, what you were talking, like we would go to some places connected to our, I would say, family history, or I will ask people to find and to bring some lullaby from the place they ancestors would be. It's difficult to research that, and then we would work with the songs, starting with them and then improvising, and at some point people will be able to improvise some, like, to remember, improvise some kind of family song or something. So this connection in this places of ancestors started to work really, really strong somehow. But we are going through all that through improvisation and connecting it to ancient Ukrainian songs, and somehow this my improvisation led me to very specific music path. I started to also research and study a lot of Ukrainian music, ritualistic music, a lot of stuff. Start to travel to some authentic rustic places and study with elders, and after that it's influencing my improvisation quite strongly, I would say, and we're going this way with my students as well. Yeah, so yeah.
Wow, it's amazing to hear that. Right, so you're actually quite intentionally now using this art form to be with your collective and historical and present Ukrainianness, to be with your elders, the family themes, the ancestral themes, to be with the places, and use vocal improvisation to explore what you've been through as a people, what you're with, who you are.
Yeah, and we have this, I would say, luxury, which is not luxury, to see how history is spinning, because what we are going through now, Ukrainians were going many times in past centuries. So we could say that we're living this moment and singing is this moment, and next week we're going to the mountains with some of my students, and we will like improvise a lot and study songs. So we are reliving the same drama and trauma, but at this point we have kind of possibility to heal through singing as well. So we are during the war I started to work with people first remotely. Then when I wasn't in Ukraine at the beginning of the war and half of the year during the war, I was singing and improvising with Ukrainians on my route back to home, and I see that it's healing them a lot. We just start to sing and everybody start to cry, even though some of them said that they were not able to cry since the beginning of the war, but just first 5 minutes and people are able to like to leave it somehow, to be more open to the feelings.
Beautiful. Oh, Valentina, it's so wonderful to hear from you, and there'll hopefully be a bit of room at the end but maybe some of us or all of us could unmute and like sing a chord to Valentina, sing her one note to kind of honor what we've heard, what the work that you're doing, the beauty, the courage, the depth of it, yeah. Maybe we'll unmute if you want to join in a chord for Valentina.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I have a little tear in my eye. In one. but thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Sentence.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to hear your story, and all power to you, and onwards. Hey everyone, let's all of the thought and sing. Let just, if you want to just have a little sing, like what did that bring up for you? What is alive in you? I'd say let's all do it on mute right now and just have some space to sound for a moment or two. Beautiful. So welcome if you've just joined, if you'd mute, please. So I want to bring in Anita now, who can't be with us, sadly. As she's off on a retreat with a woman in Greece. But Anita is a Cranio Sacral somatic trauma therapist, and she works a lot with the nervous system and the body. And she says with the voice, I'm going to like paraphrase her and read some of her notes, and I'm going to play you a YouTube video of our conversation. So she says, you know, we're embryologically, when we're growing, this middle layer, the mesoderm, becomes the face and the voice and the heart. They unfold from each other, the face and the heart, and the vocal folds are in the middle. And so the voice is directly connected to the heart, and what unfolds at the same time is the vagus nerve, which is at the heart of the parasympathetic nervous system. And it goes from the root of the brain into the vocal folds, and then through the organs of the abdomen and in the pelvis. And so all of this gets very, very activated when we sing. She says, the resonance of the voice touches into deep sensory centers in our pelvis, intended for pleasure, beauty, and joy. But these places in the body touched by the vagus and the resonance of sound are also places which for many of us store personal, collective, and ancestral trauma, taboo, grief, and shame. It's also not just trauma that collaborative vocal improvisation touches into. I've also observed layers of familial and cultural conditioning and patterning being activated. This might show up in our tissue and nervous system responses and can cause us to check out, space out, freeze, be activated, etc. By activated, she means going into kind of fight, flight, freeze, these sort of nervous system activations. CVI seems to touch into many converging processes. Supporting each other includes building relational safety, offering nervous system mapping, and embodied practices that include sensing the environment outside of the body, as well as internal body sensing, slowing things down and offering pauses, rest, lots of permission and breaks, and also gentle self-reflection and kindness make a difference. So I haven't done this before, but I think she's got such a valuable voice. I'm going to have a go. Anita did a year-long course called Singing the Unseen.
What I was personally experiencing, that yes, it touched into parts of myself that I'd maybe lost contact with, maybe I'd buried, maybe had been fragmented and separated off from. Or some people were again exploring the healing aspect of vocal improvisation and revisiting early stages of their lives and allowing song to come through them or to come through witnesses or people. So it's like constellation type work. So I'd been observing that and found that just to be really extraordinary, the shifts and changes that were happening through revisiting these parts, again, these buried, hidden, disenfranchised, say, let's say, parts of ourselves. But I knew that I wanted to bring something that was like a new archetype that was coming through me, but that needed nourishment. I didn't know what it was. And as I started to sing, I just had this vision of this wizened, bony, crumpled old woman dressed in rags, lying in the ashes, not even a spark of an ember or a coal to warm her. You know, she was just like in the ashes of this fire, so thin. There was a cooking pot, and what singing of this woman and singing to her and of her brought me into contact with the archetype that needed to emerge from me, this crone, hag, second part of life archetype that really needed to be breathed into, that needed feeding, that needed nourishing. She needed me to make a fire, to warm her up, to take off those awful rags and let her be nourished and come to life again. So it's like this sort of dormant part of me, this really deeply creative part of me, and vocal improvisation gave me a way to meet that part of me, to even know that she existed. Some of the things that I touched into in what came through me were also ancestral voices. So I felt like, I remember feeling this sense of young Irish man, possibly my great grandfather, but it felt so known to me, this voice, and feeling the expression of a part of it didn't even really have any known connection to, and feeling a shift in my tissues as it was happening after it happened. So in some ways it does feel like a bridge to the other world. It feels like a bridge to what's not seen. It feels like a vehicle for expression. So as well as, you know, I think this sensing that the improvisation can trigger responses, there's also this other sense of, you know, our nervous system's ability to resource through beauty, to resource through people coming together and singing together. It's like, oh, this song wants to be sung.
I want to find my way back to you. Oh, I can't. I just want to pause and interrupt for a moment to say she told this whole long story, which I'm going to try and summarize here, that on the course there was a woman who was pregnant with twins, and some people were talking about twin loss stories from womb time, that they'd lost a twin. She was hearing people talk about twin loss stories, and she went into a panic, like a deep panic, like, I'm going to lose one of my twins. And so Anita and another woman like physically spooned her on this big couch to offer the regulation of their bodies, to help to soothe her body and nervous system. And so, yeah, so she's talking about that right now. Can I resume the share?
It's like, oh, this song wants to be sung. Who am I to sing this song in this moment? But it was there. And so this soft song came through, and it was really about two little foxes in their den, curled up, safe, happy, well. And it felt like it was a song, the song was coming from her womb through my voice. And there were these two contented little babies. And at that moment, her whole body just, it was like a physiological shift into this soft, long breath, and this softness that kind of streamed through her body. And we all just really took time in that moment, in recovery, in resting into each other. So it was body, breath, song, and being in the mystery of all that.
Yeah, and it's the shamanic way of healing as well, breath, sound, movement. And I suppose what that doesn't encompass then is touch and co-regulation and embodiment and body to body, the fluid body to body exchange of bodies like trees, passing what they need from between the mycelium, but with us the mycelium is sort of the neuroception, I suppose.
I feel like so often we focus on the triggering, the nervous system responses, all these aspects, which are really important. It's really, really good to get maps, as we know, because then, it's like helps people to just understand, oh, this is happening to me. And while this is happening to me, there are things that I can do, things that will support me back to a state that's not this, that's so overwhelming and frightening. But I also feel like that one of the really big gifts of vocal improvisation is the like I said at the very beginning, being in relationship with each other, building community, being able to sing together, bringing in some of these old way, new way practices, because that has a huge effect, I think, on our sense of what trauma is even.
Are you saying you sort of get quagmired in trauma? Like,
well, I think
heal that trauma, just spending all the time in the trauma and trying to regulate. And
well, I think that's all we hear though, is this thing of regulation, and we hear these often male voices around trauma, and I think there are some really interesting women like Kimberly Ann Johnson's talking about how the female system also responds with trauma, which may be different, bringing in beauty and bringing in song as resources, bringing in embodied practices, slowness, choice, relationship.
So there's the both and, in a way, the singing, the dancing, the ecstatic, the resourcing, the joy, bringing that in, learning to regulate and soothe, and giving voice, and being able to have those conversations with our hurting parts or our exiled parts, being able to sing the song of the old woman by the fire and let her sing, I need a fire, I need nourishment, I need this. And then how beautiful those corners of pain can become when we let the songs come into them.
Yeah, and it's again, it's that building of health. We can also focus on the health in ourselves that then spreads in and supports then the integration of what's really difficult, what's been really wounded, what's been very damaged, those responses in ourselves of trauma.
Thank you so much for dealing with the YouTube and editing. Let's call off the thought and sing. Let's do some sounding, and maybe sound with me, or maybe come off mute and be heard a little bit, and just what comes up for you as you hear Anita talk. I'm so pleased to share this topic with you. We do this work in these private workshop spaces and retreat centers, and the only people who are really aware of it are the people who are there, and it can go so deep. So I'm so grateful. and the visitors to your Zoom rooms. I'd like to move now to Nessi Gomes. Nessi is a fantastic singer and musician, and she also is a international facilitator of vocal workshops that are deeply, deeply therapeutic and transformational. She's got a BA in creative arts therapies and then a diploma in group voice therapy. Nessie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is really like at the heart of your work, and I wonder if, you know, I know you could talk for hours, you could write books, and actually I hope that you do, but when the time comes. But what would you like to share with us in about 10 minutes this evening about your own personal journey with the healing aspects of voice, and also what happens, what you see happening with the students, the people you work with, and the spaces you hold?
Thank you, Briony. Can everyone hear me, just to double check everything? Yeah. I guess I'll start with my own journey with improvisation, which started at a very young age, probably from the age of 15, really, 14, 15. I was a very troubled kid. I suffered a lot with my mental health. I grew up in a household where we didn't really talk about our feelings. Everything was often kind of swept under the carpet, which was a difficult time in my life, and I have so much love and respect for my family, and by sharing this, it's no means coming from a place of blame or anything like that. It was just how it was back in those days for myself. I had no musical background, so it wasn't like I could read music, or I had no clue about chords or anything like that. But because I was in such a dark place in my being, there were times, and I'm thankful they were failed attempts of suicide, which led me to speak to, have talking therapy, and this obviously had its beauty, but often I found when I would spend an hour with a therapist and kind of retelling my story or this narrative, I would leave that hour not necessarily feeling lighter. If anything, I would feel heavier. I'd feel like this burden was still kind of being carried with me. And what I kind of was intuitively drawn to, and it was by coincidence, I really, my auntie, who I used to spend a lot of time with when I was younger, had a piano in her house, and it was always covered in ornaments. Portuguese homes tend to be covered in ornaments everywhere in the house. So I found myself kind of being drawn to this instrument, to this beautiful piano, and removing all the kind of ornaments on the piano, and just tinkling, just making these little melodies on the piano. And like I said, I have no musical background, but I'd find myself literally improvising in the moment. And I guess because I didn't have any kind of musical background, it really required me to be very present with the moment. And what I noticed from a very young age, and maybe I wasn't very conscious of it or could put it into words like I am now, but what I've noticed, or what I noticed from a very young age of using my voice in an improvised way, was that it was able to kind of move through emotions that maybe words would keep me very stuck. And I think this is what I also recognize, the power of kind of improvisation or intuitive singing, however you want to kind of call it. And I think that was what I really, a light bulb moment came on for me, was like, wow, I don't need to go into the story. I don't need to talk about what's, this history or this pain that I'm going through, which often, like I said, I'd leave these sessions just feeling heavier. Whereas with improvised singing, I could really lock into those emotions in my body, in my heart, in my spirit, in my mental body, and give it a sound and navigate through these kind of murky, dark waters and come out the other side feeling lighter. And so this early start in my life led me to kind of work and learn about music and voice as a therapeutic tool. And so it was only in 2013, 2014, after kind of completing 3-year degree in creative expressive therapies, that I found a course with the British Academy of Sound Therapy, specifically on holistic voice therapy. And this was really my passion, because even though I played a guitar later on in life, it was really the voice that was the access point for me. And it was really the voice that contributed hugely to my healing journey, more than talking therapy. And again, I don't want to say this with any disregard or disrespect to talking therapy practices. It was just my experience. Speaking about my story, speaking about my narrative, felt like it was just holding me back. And whereas when I gave it a voice or a sound, I felt like I was being, I was able to really heal stuff without necessarily needing to understand the why and how. And it was just working with the moment and allowing me to, I guess it made me feel more empowered. Whereas when I spoke about my challenges, it made me feel like a victim. Whereas when I sang them, when I gave it sound, I felt like I was really able to access other layers of understanding that maybe speaking didn't allow me to. And I think that's what I've noticed over the years working with people, and in the retreats and workshops that I do, because often it's people that don't come with any musical background, and we all have a voice. And I think in society we've kind of been conditioned to feel that this is only accessible for people that are really musicians or have a lot of experience in that. So to create these containers for people to meet themselves through their voice, what I've noticed is, like myself, because often I see it when I see these people having these beautiful, profound moments, I see myself like the first time. It allows us to really connect to our aliveness. For me, the voice is very much a mirror into our inner world. So whatever's coming up vocally, if we're experiencing resistance, often you might see the resistance being reflected in the voice, and then you can notice when that sweet spot is happening, when maybe there's a softening in the resistance, and you hear it vocally. So there's a lot of kind of amazing benefits and healing that for me, it's a real spiritual practice. It's a real sense of nourishment. I've always found it quite hard to put words to my emotions, but I can give my emotions sound. I can give my physical body sound. I can give my mind sound, like I said, without having to dig into a narrative too much. And I think also, for me, when we're improvising or like working with improvisation, it's really also like a direct connection to the heart. It might not always feel like that because resistance can come up and throw us into our mind. But for me, improvisation is learning to kind of walk the path of the heart, because it requires a certain amount of letting go as well, like not being okay, I've got to nail this, because that's the language of the mind, right? The calculation, the staying safe, and sometimes that's necessary, but it's a real path of trust. And I feel like with improvised singing, which is my starting point, it gave me so much, because I was really a very insecure child. I grew up in a family where, especially women, I quickly, I could see that there were different rules for women and men in my family, and it's very patriarchal. And again, I say this with respect to my family. They're just coming from their own conditioning, right? So, and I saw it with my mum, very passive. She's a very passive person, and she would just accept whatever was being told, whereas I was more of a fighter. And I think that's come through using my voice through improvisation, really learning my strengths, really built who am I. Like I really got to know a part of myself through improvisation that I didn't really access before. And so this is what I'm passionate about, and this is why I love working with people and creating these containers for people to meet that themselves and to have access that themselves, you know. So it's really yeah, it's a real practice of presence as well, you know, real deep listening as well. There's
Gorgeous. Oh, thank you so much, Nessie. Hey, is anyone not on mute? There's some
it's my
murmuring.
sorry
Oh, it's your life.
it's my daughter. Hang on, I'll
It's
just
your-
mute
No,
them.
that's fine. No, it's fine. But Nessie, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and sharing your beautiful story. And I'm hearing, right, voice gives you a root of expression for your emotions that maybe words don't work for, and empowerment, like your story makes you feel like a victim, but voice makes you access deeper layers and have insight and power, and leaves you feeling better, and has been this deep path for you, this deep spiritual practice, and you help so many people with that now. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Maybe let's unmute and sing Nessie a chord. Say thank you and honor her. Beautiful. Thanks, everyone. It's so lovely to hear you. We got 2 more people to hear, and we're gonna have a dance break and a little comfort break. I think. I would love to put you into breakout rooms to talk to each other. Would you like that? Yeah. Let's take, I don't know, 3 minutes each, and just say kind of who you are and what's alive for you in this conversation. I'll send you a message when it's time to move over person. So let me see about the breakout room. Create 22 breakout rooms. And let's see. If you don't want to be in your breakout room, don't go into it, and I'll move. I'll move around the other people, the unassigned people. All right, enjoy. Hey, welcome back. If you go back on mute, let's have a bit of open space. Who would like to share something? What is alive for you in this conversation? Maybe you shared it with your partner just now.
I'd love to share something.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. It's really, really lovely to be here. Something I'd like to add in for the contemplation, really, about the power of sound is the elemental nature of it. And I mean that very literally, in the sense that the work I do with sound and sound healing and just sound expression, both for myself and with others as a guide, is that when we take journeys using sound, we'll each do it differently, but the way I do it, it somehow miraculously facilitates these journeys into the forest or into the ocean or into the mountains or the desert, and people who wouldn't necessarily relate to that kind of terminology or those kinds of journeys. So even middle school kids, as well as people who are on a metaphysical sort of spiritual path by choice. I just, I kind of bow to the power of sound to be able to work its magic on us and with us and through us, so that different people at the same time in the same space will have an experience that's actually really, really poignant for them. And I think that's incredible that sound can do that when we're able to have a relationship with it that lets it breathe itself into us.
Beautiful.
So that's what I wanted to bring in is the forest and the wind and the trees and the sea.
Yeah, the elemental aspect of sound, bowing to the power of sound and the way and the unique medicine it has for each of us. Gorgeous. Thanks for sharing, Claire. One or two more voices and then we'll have a little break. What else is here? Just unmute. I can't see you all, so just unmute and speak. And a hush fell upon the land. Jacob.
Yeah. Hello. I'm
Hello.
Jacob from Munich and no native speaker, so must apologize about language. I'm very inspired from you and all we have talked about, especially Nessie, what you told us. And I would add an aspect of, because I'm working and teaching kind of improvisation for a long time now, and for my personal experience and also for my work, and had the task of maybe too much, and maybe is this very large, great energy and possibilities lies in this work can be for some people, for some situations, too much, and how to deal with that. In last years, I took courses in the somatic experiencing, where we have this principle of titration and pendulation. There's a very small steps and go into trauma vortex, come out of trauma vortex, and like this. And I'm not for this time. I'm not sure, and I'm just searching about how to translate this kind of principle into the singing and tone sounding work, because sound and singing very gets large very fast, and in groups they have very different needs and situations in groups, and I'm kind of struggling with this task until now.
Jakob, thanks for sharing, and I'd personally be really interested in picking up the conversation in more depth between the two of us as improvisation speakers. But what I'm exploring in my work is dividing people by level a little bit, because when people are more confident singers, I find we can use voice to sing through what comes up, and we have forms to do that. But when people are beginner intermediate, and it's actually the act of sounding themselves that is so triggering, and you need to titrate against the act of singing. It's like, well, what do? We can't keep singing. That's the thing that's creating the overwhelm. And right this year, I'm exploring integrating with other forms of therapy like IFS or ecotherapy, where we actually stop singing and use something else to support with all that has come up in the act of singing. And then when people have like integrated and recovered, titrated, then we have another go at singing, and this back and forth where, But I'd happily continue the conversation with you. And I think there's so many of us who are practitioners in this field, who are primarily musicians, wanting to teach improvisation and singing, and then facing this, the power of sound, the power of improvised voice, and what you talk about, like, yeah, it can really overwhelm people sometimes. And what is ethical, what is kind, what is wise, what is skilled when we hold this. Yeah, thank you for sharing your voice, and really interesting.
Have I?
Hey, oh,
sorry, I was just going to wonder, is there time
yeah.
to add something at that point? Because something just came up for me.
Yeah, Marcia, add something.
Really brief.
Have
really,
a break.
really brief.
Yeah,
It's the whole thing about integration. So I guess just in following on completely from what you said, just thinking about this as potentially being, or as being a healing modality. I think with every healing modality, especially when you've done something quite intensive, it's really important to have space, whether within the session or the course or whatever, but to take time afterwards, like within daily life, to try to integrate what's happened. I think it's possible that I know in sort of there are other sorts of healing modalities, like sometimes when people have quite intense psychedelic experiences, or maybe even, if they've had sort of intense inpatient unit experiences, it's important for whatever has happened to find a way of bringing that back in. So I just wanted to add that at that point, because it followed on.
Yeah,
from what was
beautiful.
just said.
Thanks, Marcia. Yeah, the space for integration. Let's us have some space for integration now. We'll have like a little 2-minute comfort break, and then I'm going to put on one of the songs from Valentina's album, and we can have a bop around and a dance, because we're all sitting at the screens. So I'll see you in a couple of minutes for some dancing. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm gonna make Conor a co-host. Isn't it good to dance? Valentina, are you still here? Can you put the link to your wonderful album in the oh gosh.
I already did that.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. So if you look in the chat, everybody.
Yeah, I put the link for the whole album, so please follow.
Conor. I tell you what, I'm gonna get Conor talking, and then you want to. Here you are, make co-host. Okay, isn't it good to dance? Did you have a boogie? Yeah. So I'd like to welcome you all back from the break and invite Conor now to speak. Conor O'Brien is a music therapist, and he was doing a master's in music therapy in Bristol, and he started to sing with some vocal improvisers in Bristol, collaborative vocal improvisers, and he was like, hang on, this is really therapeutic. And he was like, wait, there's no mention of this in music therapy. So he said, okay, I'm going to do my master's dissertation looking at this. And he interviewed a few deep practitioners of CVI about it. And I remember reading your dissertation, Conor, and in the literature review, he said, I spent a lot of time in the library. I didn't find any music therapy literature addressing the use of vocal improvisation and CVI for music therapy. You found literature on instrumental improvisation, you found literature on choir singing, but improvisation with the voice or collaborative improvisation you didn't find. So Conor, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to hear what feels relevant from your perspective about, first of all, what struck you as therapeutic about the practice of CVI, and then what insights you gained really from the process of your dissertation research and what that's left you with. Welcome.
Thank you, Briony. Yeah, as you said, it was through my own experience of doing some group improvisation, and I really wouldn't have considered myself much of a vocalist, but I ended up through Danielle, actually, who's here. She brought me along to a vocal improv group, and I just really enjoyed it, and it was just quite a new experience for me. And there was one particular experience where I felt like, oh, something definitely happened there. I'm not quite sure what it was, but that's really piqued my interest. And when it kind of came around time for me to do my dissertation, I decided, well, why not go down this route and see what's going on here if I can. So yeah, decided to set up some interviews and sort of learned about the process. I've created a little PowerPoint slide, which kind of just like goes a little bit through the study, so you can kind of see the outcome. Would you like me to go through that?
Yeah, sounds great. Just a reminder to everybody, you can view gallery mode where you see all our faces, or if you view speaker, then you'll see Conor and his screen. Or no, maybe if you share, it just comes on all our screen, doesn't it?
Yeah, it should just come on. Let me see.
Zoom format. There we go.
Yeah, so does that look good?
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, just briefly about the study. There were 4 participants. It was a qualitative research, so it was in-depth interviews and looking for deep understanding of individual experiences. And then the interpretive phenomenological analysis is basically putting all of the data together, mixing it around, and then sort of taking bits out of it again to find out whether there was things that were kind of in accordance between the people and what people were talking about. So briefly, over all the findings, there was these 3 overarching themes, which were the kind of the well-being and therapeutic benefits, the processes that were happening, and that's kind of separated into 5 separate ones because there was quite a few different processes which seemed to be coming up. And finally, it was barriers to a key human experience. So I'll go through those a little bit in turn. Yeah, really, I've just picked out some quotes, which I've been slightly blocked out by your faces. Hang on. Okay. So yeah, so it was very clear that everyone I interviewed, all 4 people, had experienced therapeutic benefits. So yeah, it's just extremely good for the heart, the soul, the mind, and the body. I always come out feeling energized. Another one, I've suffered with depression and all sorts of stuff for always, you know, and I genuinely think now that I've released something monumental. I feel as if this black mass that I've held all my life, I've carried all my life, has lifted. And it was hugely therapeutic. These are pseudonyms, by the way, just to protect people's confidentiality. So that was clear. I somewhat expected to find that people would be talking about the benefits. I was particularly interested in kind of what was going on. So yeah, this was, again, separated into 5 things that come up, which you can see there. So yeah, the musical setup, that was really just about like what's actually going on. And so the people I interviewed were doing a variety of different things, coming from different approaches to it. Wasn't specifically CVI, you know, but other things were going on as well. So there was a bit of structured, unstructured, but what seemed to be important was the feeling of freedom and the license to make a mistake. Using non-threatening language, like have a play, let's play, and people feeling that they could, you know, express themselves as they are was most important in the setup. Illuminating the shadows. So people talked about unexpected emergence of thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and memories, which has kind of been touched upon a couple of times already in the talks, which was interesting. So yeah, I discovered with hindsight, it brought up all my family stuff, being unaccepted in my family somehow, and feeling that I didn't have friends within my family. And then, yeah, I was on my own. It identified the trauma that was there, I think, and it gave the trauma an opportunity to go. You can read yourself. I mean, I wasn't calling it trauma at the time. It was, you know, just finding it challenging. And layer upon layer upon layer of inner world history, lineage, grandfather, dealt with mum issues, just all of the things. So this kind of concept of things that are like lying beneath the surface of our consciousness, emerging through the vocal improv, was a very strong theme coming up. Yeah, so then it was expressed. So these things that were in the shadow, so how were they coming through? So this, you know, vocal improvisation seemed to be really a vessel for emotional expression, which went beyond singing. It was often sounding, you know, just kind of maybe guttural screams or sobbing, these kind of things were all coming up. So it wasn't necessarily, you know, really nice vocal singing piece necessarily. But yeah, I'll just read through these as well. So I could feel something coming up and I started to sob. My whole body was sobbing, absolutely sobbing, and I couldn't control it. Absolutely could not control it. And once they'd finished, I let out this howl, absolutely from the depths of my being. All these horrible feelings were just moving through my body and my voice. And it was like this thing of catharsis. Once it had its room, you can sing it and shake it, dance it and howl it or whatever. On the other side, there's a kind of a calm and there's room for a different perspective. It almost wasn't singing, wasn't really singing. It was expressing and feeling through sound. So another theme was the importance of the witness, group presence and support. So I think a lot of these things have already been coming up, you know, and what people have been talking about, which is interesting, of course. So yeah, the witness, it's been witnessed, it's been held, it's been supported, it's been harmonized with, it's been transformed, all of this sort of stuff. So it's good to do on your own, no doubt, but the witnessing is the really, really potent thing. So the sense of coming together, being witnessed by other people in the process. And in terms of the presence, I thought was interesting in terms of as compared to coming together to sing pre-written pieces as a choir or whatever. It's that the necessity to be present, because when the music changes, if people are improvising together, if you're not listening, you're going to be singing kind of dissonantly with the people who are around. So it demands that you're actually there with the people who you're singing with, who you're vocalizing with. And finally in the process was deep connections. So that was deep connections to other members of the group members, to oneself, and also to spiritual connection. So a couple more quotes. So this is about other group members. We know each other like on a level that conversation wouldn't have given us. So it creates a bond, creates bonds and connections that you can't otherwise create. there's some kind of depth, there's some deep connection that happens that doesn't really happen in any other sphere. It's like making love without making love or something. You're in deep communication with people in a way that's rare. And this one is spiritual in a way. So whatever is beyond us and unseen, and it's like when we're singing together, we're tapping into that and making it visible, making it heard. And this kind of sense of it's difficult to put words on it. And that was also a bit of a theme that came up. And finally, which it took up a whole overarching theme in itself, and there was a lot of reference to it, was the barriers and a lot of cultural barriers and the barriers that people felt, in themselves, even to go along to, a group, or even within the group to actually express. And the sense that free improvisation was oppositional to the overarching culture of Western music, which again, you have to either be really good at it or not bother. That's a kind of a quote from one of the participants. So this sort of sense of elitist music, the people who are excellent at it perform, and then everyone else listens, and that's kind of how we digest music. And maybe this bit of a sense that that's not what we need. It's a key human experience. People were talking about how essential it's felt once they got into it. They couldn't really do without it. So yeah. Sorry, go on.
That's the 1 minute bell.
Yeah, okay, great. Conclusions. So yeah, briefly, it emerged in the study that group vocal improvisation does possess huge therapeutic potential. And we can begin to point to things that are happening. Like you mentioned, Briony, there's not a great deal of research on group vocal improvisation. So we're starting to point to things that are happening, but there's still I get a sense there's a bit of a mystery and magic in the process. And again, the barriers that prevent people from, partaking with it, with GVI and committing to it, seems to also be a big thing in our age and in our place. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Conor. Gosh, I wish we had more time. I'd love to hear, what now for you, now that you've done this research, but I'm afraid I would love to hear from Marcia before we end. So thank you. Let's unmute and give Conor a chord, because it's so clear. That was the first ever PowerPoint that's ever come in Call of the Thought and Singing, but it was so clear and helpful. Let's unmute and give him a chord. Great. I always wish we had more time to sing, each other sing and all the things, but I want to invite now Marcia Willis to join us. Marcia has, would you mind muting, please? We're not gonna, there we go. Okay. Marcia is a beautiful improviser, and she's deeply webbed in the vocal improvisation community in the UK. And she's been studying it with Guillermo, with myself, and maybe other teachers for some years now. And she's spent her whole career working in mental health within the NHS, and I think more in a model with medications and the DSM and the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. And so, Marcia, in a way, you've been sort of between two worlds, between your professional life and your musical life. What are you noticing as you hear this conversation? What have you been noticing as you sing and be in communities practicing this and be in work? And yeah, what do you notice on this theme? And thank you so much for being with us this evening. Welcome.
Thanks, Briony. I just want to check, is it 7 minutes? 6?
7 minutes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm noticing a lot. And I mean, just the topics of like singing and healing and trauma, all of those are just enormous. I just want to also acknowledge Jenny, who's around here somewhere, because she's one of the people that I've done some group vocal improv with in a different way, but it's definitely part of what led me this way. There's so many things, like my own like personal and professional experience, but also on the back of all the other speakers this evening. So I'm just going to try, and what I say probably like won't all sound like elegant, but it'll probably just be more like kind of picking out some themes or throwing out a couple of things for people to kind of chew on afterwards. So first thing I want to say is things which have I think resonated for me through this conversation, through my vocal improv experience and through professional work, are the importance of presence and witnessing and truly deep listening, and also trust. There are other things that are also important for, if you like, a basic therapeutic context, but I think all of those are important across the board. I want to also say that aside from whatever sort of personal or sort of local group or structural barriers might get in the way of what feels like an experience that kind of shifts things in a good way for people, I think some of the kind of local cultural things that are being touched on are also important. So some formal musical education has its place, but music is one of those things which in our society is kind of seen potentially as a separate subject or like as an art form. But for most of history, including in this country, it's been one of many things that people kind of do together that helps kind of bond people and can be part of formal and informal healing processes. And I think trying to remember that is, I find is kind of helpful in terms of trying to reduce maybe some initial barriers to the process. I also, I'll say straight up, this for me, there's been a lot about just feeling back into what a healthy baseline is in all sorts of levels, and feeling back into just the essentials of being human. There's a lot about collaborative vocal improvisation over the last 10 years that I have found to be really important and nurturing, nourishing, and transformative for me with this process. Words sometimes good, but also again, I think the being able to just sound is great. And I think again, for me, I can't say for everybody, but the knowledge that when we all first enter the world as humans, we sound, and whatever kind of country we're born into, whatever society we're born into, we sound before we learn what the formal local vocab is. So as well as sounding, maybe feeling potentially safer when it may be hard to put certain things into words, I think remembering that that's where we start from, not just in the CVI process, but also in life. I think I find that kind of helpful. I don't know how much time, so there were two other things I really wanted to try to fit in somewhere. One is, for me, as much as singing, vocal improv, collaborative vocal improv is people have healing experiences from it. I think for me, that plus other potential healing modality can be of greatest benefit if it's one of many things that a person has access to in life. And that includes all the basics, like preferably a safe place to live, safe, supportive people to be around, hopefully enough money to not have to worry like too much about everything, basics with kind of food, sleep, like meditation, prayer, spiritual practice, time in nature, all of those things. So that the idea of, for me, it's like the healing's not only in this one outside thing, but it's more to do with something that can emerge in a particular context and be found in more than one place. And another thing that I mentioned, which is no way we can touch on, is I think that given the times that we live in, not just our own sort of personal situations, but like events over the last few years, of which have really kind of shaken lots of important things, like just trust in people in particular sort of positions and systems and things, but also thinking about what we may all potentially be facing in the next few years or decades or whatever. I think it's probably helpful to kind of do kind of maybe like a individual and group and sort of societal kind of think about what healing means, what it can mean for a particular person, a particular group of people in a particular context, and what we would expect from a particular modality. So that, again, if I sort of think about the way mental health services, or my experience of mental health services, my opinion of mental health services is that even when there is an attempt to sort of say work with contexts like family and school and whatever, the way things tend to be organized, the way things have been historically, is often like a focus on an individual person, their symptoms, meeting a particular therapist, psychiatrist, or psychologist, whatever, and then having some sort of treatment in inverted commas, and then depending on what the context is, when there's an agreement that the process is done, or the clinic or the system says it's done, or the clinician or whoever says it's done, then that's that bit done. But that's not life done, and that's not the end of a healing process. And I think if we're, so I just think we maybe just need to be thoughtful about what we're meaning when we're using certain language to describe a process, which is quite difficult to put into words anyway.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Should we unmute and offer Marcia a chord? I love what you're saying about culture and singing just being this normal human thing, and having a good baseline of wellness and regular singing being available to people, humans, as part of community and cultural life. And it's available thing, and looking at well-being through a collective lens and cultural lens. And
I'm really sorry. We're now out of time. There's one other thing. I'm really sorry. So one is obviously thank you for the chord, but the other thing is something oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I can't remember if it was Amy, person I spoke to in the breakout room. But the other thing that's important to mention in the wider space was also about the big doses of singing, the sort of immersive experiences, whether over a period of time, over a weekend or a week or whatever. Those can be amazing and sometimes overwhelming. And it's helpful. I found it helpful. It may be helpful for other people to also think about the sort of small, regular.
Have you frozen? Are you thinking? Marcia, I think you're frozen. Sorry, but I hear what you're saying, like small, regular doses, like a weekly choir, like a couple of hours here or there. Yeah.
Or even just at home. It's like same with, say, movement. So don't just go for a marathon, or don't just go for like a mega long kind of yoga retreat when you've done enough. Just the kind of little bits of something every day to kind of just keep things a bit fluid, and then you can build on that in other spaces. And I think it also, for me, there's less of a bump to get over, or less of a degree of sort of anxiety or worry or whatever. We're just been kind of taking along, doing little bits before going into a sort of a deeper process.
Yeah, beautiful. Little and often, like any good healthy thing. Oh, I love the practical day-to-day normal life angle of what you're saying. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Martha. Oh my goodness, my partner's like, we're not done yet. Sorry. Coming home. Hey everybody, this is such a big topic. I feel like I feel like this is something that maybe the world is just becoming aware. You know, a lot of people don't even know what improvised singing is, let alone power of what it can do to us and with us. So I'm just so grateful that you've already all joined us for this conversation this evening. And maybe it's our soul flying. Oh, maybe this is the beginning of the conversation. I don't know, but we could carry on. I might put something on my Facebook about it now. And then if you have, I'm Briony Greenhill, just look for, there's like an artist Facebook and then there's a person Facebook, and I do everything on my person Facebook really. So just like, if you want to come and comment and chat, go to my Facebook and talk to each other. But maybe to end, let's all dare to unmute and just do a little tiny vocal thing where we just go up and down the mountain together. We'll start low and gentle, and then we'll go higher and loud. And if it's too loud for you, just turn your volume button down. And then we'll come back to the ground together. I want to thank so much our speakers, Valentina Levchenko, Anita Lewis, Nessi Gomes, Conor O'Brien, Marcia Willis, and all of you for coming. And may you enjoy the well-being benefits of improvised singing a little every day for the long haul, and share it with people and join in. But let's unmute, start at the bottom of the mountain, and we'll go up and down. Maybe we can all get off the computer and go and have a nice sing now, to like just keep singing. It's been so lovely to spend the evening with you. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm going to put this video on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. I don't know, if you look up Briony Greenhill on YouTube.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Goodbye, good evening, farewell. Okay, you still live in the feathers seem to fly in sunlight outside. Still the breath of the wind still lives them in your blood, still flows in those quiet ribbons of tension that thread around your form. Live there for now. Okay. Okay, the ground there beneath your feet supports you every day. You breathe, drink and love. You fill your body healthily, and somewhere deep down inside your heart you know all the truths.
okay?